Okay, so we're just about done taking off the finish. There's still a few places, like right in here, where you can't get the power tools into, that you got to, there's no other way to do it than by hand. So what I'm using here is a little file, and it's a pretty rough cut file, and that'll allow me to get right in here and take a nice flat smooth stroke. And this will probably take a little while, but this will allow me to get straight in there and remove all that finish and color that's down right in this spot. There's a couple other spots too, which we're going to be working with. A little bit right here, the spindle sander left that we talked about just last time. And that's pretty easy. That we can just take off with a little bit of sandpaper. Just come right in here and sand it right off, because it's not a lot and it's on a corner. On a corner you can really take that finish off fast. And there's a couple other little spots that were left. So I'm going to take care of that real quick, and then we're going to get on to the next. One of the things we're going to be doing here is we're going to be doing a full fretboard inlay. We finally decided what we're going to do. We're doing Invaders from Mars. So basically we're going to be doing a big planet Mars that's going to come here and have like the polar caps and the little canals and stuff. And then there's going to be little flying saucers coming off, and those flying saucers are going to get bigger as we go on the fretboard. Well, in order to do that, we are going to need to remove the frets. Now, there are some people out there that'll tell you you can do it with the frets on, and technically you can. You just can't do it well with the frets on, and you take a very high risk of damaging the frets. Now, that's something that I really don't like. I'm probably going to keep this guitar. So, although I don't know, sometimes I build guitars like this for myself, and then I get so many bids for it that I end up selling it. But there's a good chance I'm going to be keeping this one. I want to keep this one. So I want to do the job perfect, and that's the way we always try to do it. And therefore, we have certain rules about what we will and will not do with the frets on. And one of those rules, if you've asked, is that we won't inlay past the lower than the 12th fret down here if the frets are still on. And that's because we really can't get the files in between the frets when they get nice and low like that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take these frets off, and I want to show you how that's done, because you might be interested to know. I've got a couple of tools. You never know how tough the fret's going to be, but I have a very little screwdriver. This is a very tiny little screwdriver. You can get these in little sets for like $6. And then I have a set of channel clips here. And then I also have a tool which, if it's really sticky, I use this little baby here. But this first one came off really easy, so I don't expect there to be much trouble. Now the thing you're going to want is a soldering pencil. If you don't have one of these are like $6 at Radio Shack. And all you need to do is just take your soldering pencil, touch it to the top of the fret, let it sit there for a little bit. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because usually frets are epoxied in. And epoxy, unlike most glues will come up with water. Epoxy comes up with heat. The heat actually melts the epoxy. So, once this is good and hot, I just apply a little pressure to the end here. And it must not be good and hot because it's not coming out yet. So I'm just going to apply this heat. The heat will go all the way across the fret. Now be careful, because these metal frets really conduct the heat. And once you touch this thing, that fret's going to get up to about 400 degrees real fast. So you don't want to touch it, you don't want to play with it. One of the mistakes people make is as soon as they get it off, they grab it and put it away, and then they got these little burn marks on their fingers. Not fun. So just get underneath it, and it's starting to come up real nice now. And I just kind of come up underneath it a little bit here. This one's a little bit tougher than the first one, not bad, there it goes. Now, once again, I said, once it comes out, don't touch it. It's burning hot. So we're just going to take it here. I'm just putting it on a piece of tape. I might actually reuse these frets depending on how good they come off. And they are coming off really, really good. Well, here we are in the last step to prepping this thing. After this, we get to start the inlay work. Oh, I can't wait. Anyway, what I've got here is a router Dremel base, and there's just a Dremel router. I like the digitals. I think I've mentioned that before. Very, very cool. And I'm using about an 1/8 inch bit. And what I want to do here is the pockets for the controls are routed very, very shallow. And I want to replace them with wood instead of just like they're plastic. They're just little thin sheets of plastic covering these up. And I want to put wood ones in there, and if I use wood that thin, first of all, I can't inlay on it. And secondly, if the problem here is going to be that if I make them that thin, they're going to warp. So I got to recess these down a little bit, make them a little deeper so I can put some nice wood, probably mahogany wood plates in here to cover. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to route this out. If you're not real good with a Dremel router, I suggest you practice a lot before you try this yourself. Or you can use some kind of roller bit, make a pattern for yourself and use some kind of roller bit. But for me, that would just take longer than just doing it by hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here because I'm really good at following lines. And I'm using an 1/8 inch bit. I don't want anything too big because if anything were to happen, you never know. If anything were to happen, I wouldn't want it to cut too far. The bigger the bit, the bigger the mistake. So I'm using an 1/8 inch because I don't want to be here forever. But on the other hand, I want to make sure I do a nice job here and cutting it out. So I'm just going to put the Dremel base on. And it's really nice that it's this nice bright red too, because you can't miss it. And I'm just going to cut my way in. And this is such exacting work, I think I'm going to need some magnifying glasses. If you don't have a pair of magnifying glasses, go get some. They're cheap. You can find them at the dollar store for $2. And they really help as far as being able to spot those lines. Let's just turn this on and start cutting. And there you have it. 3 nicely recessed holes. Took me about a half hour, but it was definitely worth it because the little plastic ones that they gave you were nasty, and I don't like plastic. I like the real stuff. So the next step is to start inlaying, and I'm really looking forward to that. So I'll see you at the next video. Thanks for stopping by.